So far, I've made a bunch of videos about Home Assistant Community Store, and by the time that you are watching this video, I hope to have a specific playlist on my channel just regarding the HACS components, or integrations, or frontends, or whatever. But no, today we will not be talking about any specific component. Instead, we will be talking about HACS in general. So keep watching, we'll start in a couple of seconds. As I said, the topic of this video will not be any integration, front-end, automation, or add-ons. And if you are looking for add-ons in Home Assistant Community Store, you are at the wrong place. Home Assistant Community Store, or HACS, allows you to install components, integrations, AppDaemon, NetDaemon, templates, etc., but not add-ons. For add-ons, you need to have Home Assistant OS or supervised version of Home Assistant, and there, through the add-on menu, you can install any add-on that you want to install. But as the title says, Home Assistant Community Store is a community store that allows you to easily install components made by community, so-called custom components. Those custom components are made by community. 99.99% of them will never end up in Home Assistant. There are multiple of reasons, and I will be talking about that later on in the video. So what HACS is, it's actually a search engine, GitHub repository-based search engine that allows you to find and also install some of the custom components. Second of all, HACS is not officially part of Home Assistant. Again, I'm pretty sure that HACS will never become integral part of the Home Assistant. Not that the HACS is a bad thing, but simplicity of installing HACS components, custom components inside Home Assistant is actually what is the reason that it will never be integral part. Let me first explain that, because I know that a lot of people are commenting, oh, I wish HACS was part of Home Assistant. If you are a developer and want to integrate something in Home Assistant, there is official way. You can go to the developer documentation, and there you have information about the architecture, development workflow, building integrations, checklists that you have to do, has objects, entities, blah blah blah, everything that you need to create an integral part of Home Assistant. Then you make a pull request on the core integration or core repository on GitHub, and if this integration that you have created passes all of those checks, which includes the code, the documentation, the security part, and some guidelines for components on how to be developed, well then maybe your component will be part of Home Assistant. Custom components, most of them are people like you and me, actually probably not me because I'm no developer, that have done something in their basement, they put together some kind of code, taken bits of this code, bits of that code, combined together and created custom component. And if they would try to pull that in the Home Assistant core, well, they would fail because they didn't work or develop according to the standards, rules, etc. That's why we have custom components. Custom components allows each and every one of you or us to install something that is officially not endorsed, supported, or even looked or checked by Home Assistant developers in your or our Home Assistant. But that also means that a lot of the code may have errors, bugs, security issues. They could be potentially sending all the data from your instance to China, copying your bank accounts, etc. And I guess that probably most of you will never look at the code inside the custom repositories. I hope that this helps you understand why HACS will never be part of the Home Assistant, at least not official part. I'm not saying that the devs or crew from the Nabucasa or Home Assistant are not using HACS. They probably are, and I really do hope that they are using it, but not officially, in terms of no, it will not officially be part of Home Assistant. Second thing that you must know and be aware of is that each of the custom components you are installing in your own system has impact on your own setup. It is putting additional code, it is putting additional integrations, putting additional strain on the CPU, RAM, disk, etc. Also, some of the components will not work with the other components. In the last 48 hours, I've seen at least 3 repositories of one custom integration that says that if you have the other custom integration installed, this first one will fail, so you have to uninstall the second one. This tells you about the compatibility and code issues and how things are done in the custom components. I'm not telling you that custom components are bad. I have probably hundreds of them installed on a couple of my systems. I'd use them daily and I couldn't imagine my smart home without some of them. But you must remember that there could be potential issues with that. Because of that also, Home Assistant has introduced something that is called Safe Boot. Safe Boot does boot Home Assistant, but it just ignores all the custom components you installed. And that way you can see if there is an issue in the core or if the issue is in the custom integration or custom component you installed. So if you are having issues with your Home Assistant, try booting it in a safe mode. And it's very simple. Go to Developer Tools, click on Restart, Advanced Options, and Restart Home Assistant in safe mode. When you click on it, it will warn you that it will start Home Assistant without loading any custom integrations and front-end modules. This means that when I press restart, my Home Assistant will start as clean as it can be, but also it will have all the integrations, official integrations, enabled in my setup. And I did restart, for the purpose of this video, my Home Assistant at least dozen of times, because I wanted to see what is the difference in the speed of boot or reboot when I'm going between the normal and safe mode, between safe mode and safe mode, then again between safe mode and normal mode. If there are any delays, if something is faster, because not loading everything means that the system should load faster. Well, this is the tricky part. The difference between rebooting from safe mode to safe mode and rebooting from normal mode to normal mode, there is a second of delay. I did multiple of tests just to be sure that my stopwatch hasn't broken and that I didn't do something wrong. So in terms of loading times on my system, and this is Home Assistant yellow with 2 gigs of RAM, it takes me 2 minutes and 2 seconds on average to boot whatever way I'm booting my system. Second thing I was interested in is the impact on the CPU and the RAM usage when running HACS versus when running Home Assistant without HACS. This, what you see on screen, is Home Assistant yellow running in the safe mode. If we check here, we can see that the RAM usage is around 1.3 gigabytes and the CPU is around 10, 15, 16%. Let's restart it now and load everything I've installed through the HACS. When Home Assistant starts, not finish startup process, but when it starts, I will refresh the screen just to make sure that the graphs start to load. It's still not completely stable, but the boot up procedure has finished. We are around 10-20% of the CPU load and around 1.3 gigabytes of RAM. It did at one point go to 1.4 gig, but it fell down to 1.3. So in terms of memory use and also CPU use, well, it's pretty similar. And as I said, I have a lot of components installed. We can check them out. In integrations, I have following installed. Some of them are pretty heavy in terms of resources needed. Then in terms of front end, I have these installed here. That means that I don't have just one or two in the integrations and front end. I have at least 10, 15, maybe even 20 components in each of those. What is the verdict here? Strangely, I was expecting that HACS or custom components will have a more significant impact on the performance of Home Assistant. Based on my testing, in the idle, they don't seem to add up anything more than the normal Home Assistant usage adds. Again, we are not talking here about add-ons. Add-ons can be pretty power hungry. For example, FreeGate. You will see a big difference in both RAM and CPU usage there. Maybe this is due to the newer version of Python that is improved in both terms of the memory and the CPU usage. Who knows? I definitely do not know what to think about this one. But that tells you that yes, you have to be careful because there may be conflicts between the integrations, front-end components that you install through HACS, and maybe even internal integrations to Home Assistant. But in terms of the performance, there is not that much impact on the overall system usage. The question of stability is something else. Let's now talk about difference between HACS and also HACS. Those are same but not same versions. We have HACS experimental version and HACS normal version. During the installation procedure, you may get asked if you want to install and use HACS experimental version. What happens if you by accident selected that, or if you wish to go from the standard to experimental mode? And by the way, experimental mode will soon, maybe very soon, become official or main release of Home Assistant. That is actually HACS 2.0. What's the difference? If you've seen my videos, you've seen screen like this ton of times. Then I usually go to integrations, we have here new repositories, we can dismiss new repositories, we can also go to front-end, automation, and that's it. HACS 2.0 or HACS experimental will look like this. Here we have unified UI for everything. We have integrations in front-end, but also templates which were not available before, app daemon, etc. Everything is located here. By default, it starts in a downloaded. That means that these components here are downloaded and installed on my system. We can clear it, then we can see the new components that have been added to the GitHub repository that you can install through HACS. But also you can select category, for example, templates. This is something that was not previously available in HACS, Lovelace components, app daemon, themes, integrations, Python scripts. Of course, you have multiple filters, you can add columns, you can do a lot of stuff. But remember, this is how HACS will look in future, and this will be default or the new UI in the version 2.0. What if you want to get the old UI while you have the new UI? Procedure for migrating from old HACS UI to new HACS UI or vice versa is same. To do that, first of all, you have to go to Settings, Integrations, find HACS integration, click on three dots and delete it. Yeah, I'm not kidding. For you to be able to move from old to new or from new to old UI is to remove completely HACS from your system. After you remove it, you have to restart your system. After Home Assistant has restarted, clear the browser cache, although we will have to do it after we install HACS. Then go to Settings, Integrations, click on Add Integration, type in HACS, select it, and we start the, once again, configuration process. We have to check boxes. If you know how to access Home Assistant logs, tick here. If you know that there are no add-ons in HACS, click here. If you are willing to verify that you know that everything inside HACS is actually not tested by Home Assistant, tick the box. And once again, it wants you to verify that you are aware that if there are any Home Assistant errors, you need to disable all custom components. This last part here is what is selecting the old or new UI. If you do not tick this box, it will load the old UI, this one here. But if I tick the box, click on Submit, then I have to finish the installation part by clicking on the link and copying this on the GitHub repository, and configuration is done. As you see, all the previously installed custom repositories have been retained, all the configuration has been retained. You just need to select area for the integrations themselves, not for example for all the batteries, but for the integrations, and click on Finish. That's it. And the last step is once again to clear the cache of the browser. You may also restart your Home Assistant. It's not important, but if you have issues, restart it, and then you can go to HACS, and you will see either the new or the old UI. In my previous HACS video, I've talked about how I verify each component before I install it. And I will show you why I'm doing that. Let's look at two integrations. For example, let's go to local Luftdaten sensor. This is the integration that allows you to pull values locally from the Luftdaten sensor, and I did video on that around 3, 4, maybe 5 years ago. You can check that one out, but it's a nice indoor air quality sensor that may or may not also give you values for the temperature and humidity. And that sensor is used to feed the worldwide database, so you can create your neighborhood sensor that will provide everybody in your neighborhood with the current quality of air data. If we look at the integration, it is currently at version 2.3.0, it has 44 stars, and there are 5 issues, but this number is issues and pull requests combined. If we click on three dots, go to repository, where we can see potential issues here. First is that the last commit or last release was June 12, 2023, and that's 8 months ago. So nothing has been changed in the last 8 months. That doesn't necessarily mean that there is something bad with that component. It may just be working perfectly and there is no need to release a new version. But if we also go to issues, we can see that we have a couple of issues. One is from the 2021 and the latest one is last month by, Bearded Thinker. If we click on it, we see that the current integration has issues with temperature Celsius because of the changes in Home Assistant. And in the last 30 days, there were no activities, comments, or anything from the author. This is again not a bad thing because we still have 1 year for this to be fixed. But until this is fixed, each time I restart Home Assistant, I will get this error here. But let me show you one other component. This is the integration HACS agent. I did video on it around a year or maybe 2 years ago. If we click on it, this is the last official release or last commit from this developer. 2022.13.0, October 25th, 2022. And if you follow the links on the GitHub repository, you will see this page here. Help wanted, posted April 1st, 2023. And I do not think that this is April Fool's joke. It just says that currently the author is too busy and he cannot maintain, create new code, fix bugs. He is willing to contribute by testing everything and creating new releases, but simply he himself is unable to do any more work on that component. Yet, this component is still available in the repository and not a lot of people will follow the links and read all the documentation. At the end, you may install it and this may not work in the current or the future releases of Home Assistant. So there is also one way of you helping the community. Not in this case. In this case, you don't need to do anything because everything is still working. There were just no updates. But if you do notice that there is a component that is not working, that hasn't been updated, and that simply is breaking Home Assistant, you as a community user or you as a user have one option and I really do ask you to use it wisely. If you find such a component, let's for example say that this is the case here, and want to report that this HACS agent unfortunately is not working anymore with HACS and the latest release of Home Assistant, you need to click on three dots and apply on request for removal. This will create an issue on the HACS GitHub repository where you need first to be aware of all of those things here. Then you need to submit a reason why it needs to be removed and also the URL where you created issue on the original GitHub repository where you tried to talk with the author to fix things but the author was simply not responding. If the HACS team verifies the things that you have written here and that the author is not responding, they may opt out to remove that HACS integration from the HACS repository. HACS or Home Assistant Community Store is a very powerful tool. Maybe not as powerful as Spooky, but it is a powerful tool. You as an end user should be aware of the possible issues, and this is your responsibility to watch out over what things you are installing on your system. My idea is not to scare you off HACS. As I said, I'm using it, all the people that I know are using it, and I can bet that at least some of the developers from the HACS or Nabukasa are also using it. But you need to be aware of the possible problems, stability issues, security issues, or just components behaving badly. But on the other hand, I'm also looking forward to showcase in the future videos some other HACS components that I found for you. If you did like this video, don't forget to give it a like. If you have any kind of a comment or a question, you can post it down in the comment section below, or you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, or the Discord server. And before I wrap up, I really would like to thank all those wonderful people that are supporting me and that have become YouTube channel members. Thank you all for all of your support. But let's not forget each and every one of you who has watched, liked, subscribed, commented, or shared my videos. Thank you. If you want to support the channel, you can do so by clicking the join button down below and for only €2 or $2 per month becoming a YouTube channel member. You can send me a super thanks and I will be super thankful for that, or you can go to my merchandise store and get something there. I will be seeing you next time. Until then, bye bye and have fun.